Hi everyone, my name is Wasim Shaukat and today I'm going to explain you the process for applying for a temporary resident visa for Canada while you are inside Canada. So the chances are that you are a student or a worker inside Canada who has recently received an extension of your work permit or your study permit because your previous study permit or work permit had expired and you applied from within inside Canada for your extension of study permit or work permit. No, you have received those, but your sticker on your passport, which was issued in your home country, actually also expired at the same time as of your original work or study permit. Now, while you have a valid status inside Canada through your extended work permit or study permit, you still do not have the possibility to travel outside Canada because you cannot return without a valid entry visa. So therefore, you're required to apply for a temporary resident visa. So I'm making this video for those people who are applying for a TRV from within Canada, particularly if you're applying together with your family members, like you have a spouse or children with you. So I'm making this video because I have gone through this process and thought it was very confusing, so I should make it for people to learn on this. Okay, so how we will apply this? You will need to go to your GC key login in IRCC. So once you are logged in, you will come down and you will see a section called Start an Application, right? So here you will go to apply to come to Canada, and you don't have a personal reference code, and down there you will see an option of visitor visa, study, and or a work permit. So click on here, and then there are series of questions that you will need to answer. Let's go ahead with those. Okay, so the first question is what would you like to do in Canada? So if you are a student, you will select study. If you are a worker, you probably will select work. Study, how long you're planning to stay? More than 6 months. Your nationality, and so what country you're applying in. So your current country of residence, it must be Canada. Okay, and then you will select no here in my case, and then you will select your date of birth. Still status. So the next, you will see two options: study permit in Canada and temporary resident visa. So please do not select the study permit because you're applying here for temporary resident visa. So you go to this option. So there it says create your personal checklist. So it's going to ask us a few questions and then it will give us a checklist to apply. So we'll go next. Best describe your situation. So you have a study permit for a specific institution or level of education, or you have a study permit. So whatever works best for you, you're going to click that. Next, medical exam. Okay, so it asks you if you fall in one of these categories which are related to health sciences. You can read this and you can make up your selection. It is related to medical. So same is so that's a critical one. So do you want to submit an application for a family member? So if you have a spouse or if you have a children, you're gonna select yes, for example, here, and then move on, right? Okay, so and then there are questions related to your spouse. Which country? So what do your family member live in? So with you in Canada, and then your passport country, and then you click next. Okay, so then this is gonna be no. So there will be questions that I will just fill in without describing much because you can read that. Right. Okay, so now next question is very important. It says, what does your family member want to do in Canada? And you have got a few options. So imagine this is for your spouse and she has a work permit. So you have two options in the beginning that you might think may be suitable in this situation. So first is apply to remain in Canada as a visitor. So we are applying for a TRV, which is kind of a visitor visa, and we might think like, yeah, maybe this is a right option. Or the other option is to apply for or extend an open work permit. So these are kind of both are confusing options. So let us select first the visitor one and see what it brings us to. So you are going to select apply to remain in Canada as a visitor and you go. Then it asks, does your family member want to restore their status in Canada? So I assume their status is not expired. So maybe you will select next. So then there are same kind of questions about the medical examination that you will answer. Okay, then the next question after those medical questions is about the fingerprints. Your spouse has already likely given the fingerprints. So you're gonna select next, and then there are some easy questions, so I'm not getting into details into that. So there it comes, like, do you want to submit an application for another family member? So if you have more family members like your children, you can say yes, and then you can again fill some of the question for them. But okay, let us say for now we say no, and we move to next. Okay, then these are some of the simple questions. I'm not gonna take up much time on these. You're gonna answer those because they are self-explanatory questions. Okay, so when you have completed all these questions, so there will be a page which will give you review your answers summary. So all the answers that you have done in this checklist are given here, and you have the option to modify any of them if you think there was some error, right? So go through them carefully, and okay, then you're gonna click next. Okay, so let's have a look on the checklist. First of all, it will list all the forms and the required documents for yourself and then for your family members. Let's start with yourself. So first form it generates is application for visitor visa, TRV, made outside of Canada. The form is called IMM 5257. Now you will be wondering that you are applying within Canada, but this says like made outside of Canada, so which is a bit of confusing. But I just wanted to highlight that please do not get confused. This is the correct form. Even when we are applying from inside Canada, the form is the same that they use for a visitor visa, and it states as made outside of Canada. So nothing to worry about here. So that's very easy. Then the checklist of these documents. So you have many of these documents you already may have obtained when you applied for extension of your study permit or your work permit or whatever the case may be. And then in client information, you can give any of the supporting documents, and you can also fill a schedule one to this 5257 form. Let's move to your family member. For your spouse, for example, so the form that it lists for your spouse is not the same as it listed under yourself, right? 5257. This is something different. So pay attention here. It says application to change condition, extend my stay, or remain in Canada as a visitor or a temporary resident permit holder. Now, this is not the correct form that we want, because this form is actually asking IRCC to change status of your spouse who currently is on open work permit. You will be asking them to change the status to a visitor record. I have seen many people doing this error, and then they end up being in trouble, right? So if you come up with this form, that means there was something wrong. So we are not going to proceed with this application. So there was a question in the previous steps, we have to double check, and we'll have to see, and we'll have to make sure that the form is exactly this one, 5257. Okay, so we'll go back. Actually, there's an option it gives us to modify our answers. All right, so there's on this checklist on the top you see an option of modify my answers. So you will click those and go down. There was one of the option here. So it stated, what does your family member want to do in Canada? Remember those four options, and we were confused between two of those options. So we selected eventually apply to remain in Canada as visitor. So this was the selection that triggered IRCC to generate that form to change the status from work permit to visitor record. So this was wrong. So let us see, we have to modify this. We go back there, and now we select the other option, the second one, which was apply for or extend an open work permit, right? And we update this information. So it again gives us this review your answers, and you are going to select continue here, and eventually it will end up with same kind of checklist. Okay, now we have revised checklist. So go back and see for your family member. Now it says application to change conditions, extend my stay, or remain in Canada as a worker. So now this is different than what we had before. So IMM 5710. But what we were actually interested in 5257. So this is still not the same. So that means that none of those two options that we were thinking will actually work here. So if you get this one, please, please, please do not proceed. right? So I'm going to tell you what you have to do. So this was for your spouse. So if you had a children in a similar way, and you would have selected a same kind of, instead of work you would have selected study thing or a visitor thing, you might have ended up in kind of complications here. So let's see what we have to do. So we have to go and modify my answer again. So we will not go here because this was the option we were really looking for. So what you need to do is go back and so find this option. Do you want to submit an application for a family member? We had selected yes, and then all the story started. So let's go back to this. So here you must select no, right? You want to submit an application for a family member? You must say no, and you will be surprised. Like, why should I say that? Because you have family members, you want to apply for them as well, right? So you do not want to submit an application for a family member here. You must select no here, and then if you would have started from beginning and you would have done it like that, you don't want to update any family members information here, and then it will give you correct for a single application of yourself, right? Now, okay, so the complication here is that you cannot add your family members into your TRV application just like we tried to do, because they will lead to wrong forms, and they will lead to different results. So what you need to do is, according to IRCC, as of updated in November 2025, I don't know about future, that you must submit separate applications for every single family member. So if you have a spouse, they must create a separate GC key login if they don't have one, and they must submit a similar kind of application separately. And if you have children, children don't need to have a separate GC key. They can actually submit an application through your GC key or your wife's or your spouse GC key.
Wife's
Okay, so
or
in
your
order to
spouse GC key.
Okay, so in order to create a separate application for your children, you will again go to your JC key login, and that's, for example, you see your online application that you started. You will go again, apply, come to Canada, and now you see, like, we don't see that the third option that we initially selected, the visitor we study work permit. You only see express entry and international experience Canada class. This is because you have not submitted the previously started application. So you must first complete this application, process everything, submit this application, then come back and your GCK login again. If you don't have a pending application here, you will go apply to come to Canada, and then it will give you an option to start another new application for one of your children, and they will have, for example, a study permit. You will select study, and then you process that, and you complete, finish, submit it, pay fees, and then start for another children. So this is exactly how it
Right.
works. So now you have learned the process of submitting online applications for yourself, for your spouse, and the children. So in nutshell, everyone has to apply individually. So your spouse has to apply from his or her GCK login, and you can also apply for your children using your own GCK login, or your spouse could do that. So if you don't want to do all these individual applications, the other option that you've got is to apply by paper. So you can submit paper application. So you will have to send all the materials to CPC Ottawa using courier, and then they will process it. So there are actually pros and cons in both options. If you send paper applications, all of them get processed at the same time. The downside is that you will lose time in sending those to them. You will incur extra charges on courier. You will need to print a lot of documents, right? And all those things will be there. But the good thing is that everything will be processed at the same time. On the other hand, if you apply online or with all these individual applications as we discussed, so the downside is that there may be a possibility that some applications get processed earlier and the others get delayed, or so you may have different timelines for those, right? So there is always a possibility. But the good thing is that then you avoid all the hassle of using the paper applications. So for me personally, we preferred applying online, and it was fairly quick actually. The processing time in those days was about 15 days. So, exactly in 15 days, applications of my children and my spouse got approved. They received a passport request. However, my application, which was actually submitted as the first application, which was followed by my children applications, and the last was my wife's application. But mine was a bit delayed, so it took an extra week before I received a passport request. So that can happen, but I mean, it's your choice. So this information is up to date as of November 2025. I do not know what happens next, and this is exactly what worked for us. And I have no responsibility that it will work for you, but I'm pretty sure that this is how the process is. And I did this after speaking to a couple of IRCC's consultants, as well as I spoke to IRCC representative via phone. So they guided me on these two options, and I applied online, and we all now have our TRV stamped. So thank you very much for your time, and really appreciate. If you have more questions, feel free to add those questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer. What I have not done is to explain the individual application forms and what to write in what. So I'm pretty sure that you know those things already, and this was the only missing piece that I believe that people will be struggling, and they often end up just making wrong decisions and wrong type of applications, and then they suffer later on. So that's why I thought that I should share my experiences here, and people should actually get benefit out of that. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.